And we're live. What's going on, guys? Podcast time. I'm here with Mir and Sonic Soul. How are you guys?
Doing all right, I would say. I'm excited for the patch.
Sonic's not saying anything. I'm scared. Is
I'm
it,
a
is it
little
late
sleep
over there, Sonic?
I'm a little sleep deprived. It's almost 4 a.m. over here, but I'm down to talk about some of these notes. I'm down to talk about V Shift. I'm ready.
All right, man. Like for me, it's like almost 2 in the morning. For Sonic, it's like 3 in the morning. And for Mir, it's like I don't know. It's like the afternoon or something. There's like
No, it's 9
There's like
a.m.,
sun where Mir is. Like what the
yeah,
hell?
like the light of God is shining through the
Oh.
window over there.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about this winter update that took us all by storm. Just a quick, initial impressions of that. Of course, we're gonna talk about V shit. That's like the hot topic right now. We'll talk about some character balance stuff later. So starting off, do you guys notice a new direction here with Capcom? Are you guys pleased the way they presented this? And is there hope now? Is there hope now for Street Fighter V in terms of content? Like, what do you guys think about this whole like season in general? Because it's been a long wait, man. We waited a long time for it.
Well, I would say that absolutely you can see that there's at least a little bit more transparency, like showing what they were going to do, and they showed the update, and, like they talked to us about the fact that they were going to show it. I mean, it was delayed, admittedly. Like, obviously, the whole winter thing is like, oh, but the new year is still winter, but yeah.
Yeah.
But at least I think they did the right thing. Yeah, absolutely. I can see that the new direction is a good one, at least as far as I can tell, for what we have so far.
I like some of the behind the scenes stuff though, when they were showing
Yeah.
that lady like kicking the bag and they're holding it up and trying to do the rose moves and stuff. And just like, what is this? That's not even like a real fighting move. Like, what the heck is this? Like that was weird. I don't I don't know. And lucky Sonic here, you got to see Nash, got to see a buff change.
Look,
Why don't I get to see my character?
I think it was needed. The new direction was needed so that way they could finally listen to my cries. They could finally listen to me make all those videos talking about that Nash needed a 3-framer.
Before you get a 3-framer.
Too bad. Too bad. It's too late. We got V Shift. We got everything. Basically, the direction is good. I think that they're going in. They want to really like revitalize the game, and they want to get people talking about it again.
Yeah.
We've been playing this game for almost years.
Yeah, a long time.
There's a lot of things that are like out there now with the game that everyone knows. Like, well, I gotta take the throw or I die. I gotta eat a ton of pressure. I can't do anything. Where are the defensive options? I've been asking for this since season 2. All the top players want defensive options. And now with this new direction, anything's possible.
Do you think they were actually listening though, or it's just a coincidence they added a defensive mechanic to the game?
I mean, to be fair, like as much as I would like to think that they kind of just happened it happenstance on like coincidence and whatnot. I know Woshige being the battle director, he also has experience with a lot of these games.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at some point he's probably had some pressure to do something, but was probably locked up, direction of the game, like the people that were working about it before. At least that's one of my guesses.
We know this wasn't planned. You know what I mean? Like we know this wasn't planned. This season V. So that's why it's kind of messed up that they add this mechanic when it wasn't going to be there. Like this could have been it for Street Fighter V, and then it wouldn't have ended that well. I mean, maybe the character wise, we get the boss characters in. Maybe Capcom thought from their perspective, like add the boss characters and then that's a wrap. But the V system did always feel a little bit empty. I feel from the beginning.
Yeah, I can see. Absolutely.
Like, this is definitely a V trigger game. Like we rarely see anything else. Like the V skills, some of them aren't really like used all that often, or people or most characters only use one of them. V triggers, there's only one kind of V trigger that most characters will want to use. There's no real reason to use another V trigger unless it's very like tech heavy or matchup specific. A lot of the things with the V system in general just didn't feel like, I'm not saying it wasn't completely fleshed out, but it definitely feels like there was something lacking.
Do you guys have your hopes up now? Like with the game's direction? Like, are you guys like, you won't like your expectation? Like now, every time Capcom has an announcement, it's gonna be like super hype, or like how do you guys feel about it now?
Well, how can I put it? I am more excited for Street Fighter 6 in the sense that, assuming that the season is the season where they listen more to the community, they try to be more in touch and they keep going with this, showing us their progress and what they're doing in development, before it comes out, like more communication, then this would mean that for Street Fighter 6 we would have more information. We would have a game that is like more in touch with what the communities like. That's what we can hope, right? And that's what I would like to think. Now, it all depends on like basically what these community managers and developers are going to do in the years to come, right? Because this could have just been a move by Capcom to say, oh, Street Fighter players, we haven't forgotten about you. Look, this is for you. And then Street Fighter 6 is just a completely different beast.
Hmm.
They ignore us again. So obviously we cannot say. It gives me hope, at least.
But you think this is like, hey, we now that we have new direction in the game, things are going to be changing. This is how it's going to be now. We hope you guys enjoy it. Like they even had a survey this week too on just how
Yeah,
the
that's true.
presentation and who they like, who like they asked you questions like who'd you like to see, how did you like the format, what was your favorite part of it, and all that stuff. They're trying to figure out how to present this because before it used to be like a big trailer and then oh no, that's pretty much it, right? That's what they spent their budget on was like the trailer. Now
Hmm.
it's like we're spending our budget on just talking and trying to give you concise information on what's
Yeah.
happening. So like, are they doing this because of the new direction and they're like, hey, we're trying it this way, or is it more like, Ono's not here and we want to show you guys that's not a problem, like not trying to show weakness. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Like in the company
I,
that there isn't
to
turmoil.
to respond to that actually, you have to consider. Of course, we're in a time of we're in a pandemic. Basically, we're still dealing with coronavirus even now.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, if Ono would be able to come out, Ono would be able to come out and show up the trailer and whatnot back in the day. Now we might not get that because he's not in the company anymore. But moreover, I don't think that's really something that they're considering right now. I think for them to want to make it like super hype for everybody, they want to show off as much as possible, and detail as much as possible. Not too much, but like not like me going overboard. But I,
Hmm.
I I do think like they want to actually like show some form of like transparency. That's good for them. And the other thing is just again just a matter of making hype. Just making it so that way you see like more details and more information about the game. So as opposed to a high budget trailer where you get Lupe Fiasco or Del the Funky Homo Sapien to work on your songs for your trailer and try to make it super hype. Instead, you just make one big lump sum video that is already pre-recorded that already discusses everything that you have planned. And I think that's something that while it's not live and in the moment, at the very least it gives everyone like the information they want plus a little like snippet of extra details about that information. So I gets people talking a little bit more about it, rather than just the trailer itself.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely less speculation as well, just because the information is more concrete.
Yes.
Mhm.
But I think we get more hype with these developer blogs because, especially us as content creators, we actually have information. If we see a character in the trailer, we don't know like what that means at all, right? But if they actually
Yeah.
show us the move list, what they're working on, and the reasoning behind it, I think it's much more useful because then we know what to talk about and we know what to look forward to
Hmm.
in general, right? Besides like a big trailer. I mean, of course, there's times to release like a hype trailer, but not as our
Yeah.
only means of information, especially when we
Yeah,
have to wait so long in between that information
I
in general.
I do think a perfect example of this kind of transparency, right? Like even something as simple as patch notes with Grand Blue, for instance, right? Grand
Yeah.
Blue when they have their patch notes, in the beginning, we just got like simple patch notes, and we had to like the community at least had to ask like, can we get developer intention as to why these patch notes are a thing? And so they had to update the patch notes after a lot of demand, just for the developers to kind of give their like reasoning or intention as to why they made changes. And just that little bit of developer input is super important into
Oh hell yeah.
understanding what they're doing,
Hmm.
not just for patch notes, but just in general. That level of transparency is just something that I feel like us as a community in general should just strive to advocate more for.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah,
Actually, sorry, no, I was just about to say, I don't know if you guys remember last patch for Street Fighter 5. Um, some characters didn't get any changes at all, right? Like
yeah,
Mika and
Oh, I
Yuri, I
know.
think. And then
I
the comment
know.
was like, we feel like these characters are just doing well enough.
Oh.
It's like, all right, you know?
Oh, I know, bro. Oh, brutal. It's
Hey,
brutal.
Yeah,
you know now.
yeah, no, that's the thing, right? So like, obviously, if we see that new character, well, these characters are gonna get some massive changes this patch, we'll know that the devs either like they think something different now, like the direction they want to bring the game in is something is like another one, or it's that the V shift and all the other mechanics are going to impact the game in a way where these characters now actually needed balance patches.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of how you slice it, if we see more developer input, like Sonic was saying, I think it's really important. Like it helps quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of that, guys, V shift. This is like the
Yeah.
current hot topic right now. Everyone's talking about. Some people are like, "Oh, it's gonna break the game," or everyone's just like, no second super." I don't think anyone said no second super, but you know what I mean. Like, there's so many people talking about it, and the more we learn about it, the more we realize, okay, it's not as insane as we thought at the beginning. Now that we're kind of like dissecting it and breaking it down, but we've already had some concerns with pro players. Daigo already has spoken out saying like, oh, what if this messes up zoning? If you can react to this like on a fireball, for example. And
Yeah.
like, well, think about the alternatives that Capcom could have added. They could have added the second super, or they could have added the second V reversal. I really thought Capcom, not like being lazy, but more like, hey, we have time constraints. We're trying to buy time here for Street Fighter 6. Let's just create a mechanic that's really easy to make. Something like, just like in Street Fighter 4, we had the double ultra, or the red focus. These were mechanics that kind of just, it was more of like an afterthought, I feel, compared to something like this V shift, where it's actually like this brand new mechanic that they're adding that uses the V system. So I'm pretty like stoked for it, man. It's gonna completely change the game. At the like, instead of something that maybe hopefully won't completely take out certain aspects of Street Fighter that make Street Fighter, like zoning, right?
Yeah.
Like if they added parry to the game, oh man, that'd be brutal. I'm sure a lot of casual players would have loved it because they're like, oh, parry, I love parry. But it would have. I don't like. We have enough things that counter zoning in general in the game
I
already.
think that would hella counter zoning. We've seen what
Yeah.
like about already. Like let's I'm good.
Yeah.
Another thing that's also worth mentioning about V Shift, I think, is that in the past we kind of like had an idea of what was going to happen because of all the leaks, rumors, and what have you. But I
Yeah.
don't think that they ever like really leaked anything about V Shift, right? Like everyone was expecting a second super, everyone was talking about second V reversal, right? But
I
like the V
think
Shift was,
I think this is pure coincidence, but I remember reading people saying there's going to be a V break system, and the V break is going to be a combo breaker. I think it's just a coincidence that they said it was V break and we have V shift break. But
yeah, no, 'cause I was gonna say like this doesn't act like a combo breaker at all, right?
mhm.
So
It's just
the
that the words
follow-up
were the same, which is interesting.
the follow up to the V shift is kind of like that. Like yeah, use the V shift to get out of the combo, but the thing is, no, it's not putting you in hit stun. It's putting you in blocks,
Yeah.
or rather, like you're in a neutral state and you're trying to escape out of blocks from like a
Mhm.
previous frame trap. So
Mhm.
it's not really a combo breaker or anything. So I don't.
Well, there's a lot to this mechanic, and there could be a lot of problems already that we have to ask ourselves because we know it's a backdash. We know it's an invincible backdash, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, all backdashes in the game aren't exactly the same in terms of
Yeah.
their speed and the distance they cover, right? And then on top
Mhm.
of that, they don't have a universal counterattack. Well, at the time when they probably made it, they didn't. And so certain characters are not going to be able to counter with anything because certain characters are stubby compared to others. So they're like, okay, we need a universal way so that when you do V shift, you always have something you can counter with. And that's where V shift break comes in, right?
Mhm.
But now, like I said, some characters that won't need to use V shift break just because of the way the character is designed. So
Well,
it's going to be very interesting on which characters benefit from this more than others.
now I was going to add that another thing that we don't know yet is that from what we've seen so far, right? All the V breaks seem to knock down, like they seem to be the same kind of attack, right?
Yeah.
But we don't know if there's gonna be characters that have a V break that doesn't knock down,
Yeah.
for example. Like it's
Which
something
means
that wasn't shown, right? Because we haven't seen all the
Right.
and at the same time, maybe someone has a V break that I don't know teleports behind you, just like the movie theater.
I highly doubt it. I'm sure they're all going to be knockdown attacks because it just makes sense with this system. I know we have V reversals that do side switch, but I feel like with V shift, the way it is, it looks like it's literally intended to stop and punish, very telegraphed pressure as a defensive
Yeah.
mechanic. And I think that would really suck for characters that already have a dodge, and then you get another dodge. It's like, I don't know, it wouldn't
Well, I mean,
really
I
work
would
well.
hope that the characters that get the bad, quote unquote, V break are the ones that already have a lot of options to deal with those block strings, right? Like, that's what would make more sense. It's
But we
like,
already know that's not the case because we've seen Rashid. He's got a knockdown one, right? We already see top tier characters
I
that literally have
I
knockdowns, so we know that's
I,
not the
I
case.
personally don't think that there's gonna be any different V-shift break.
mhm.
The question
I'm
is it going to do grade damage or is it going to do normal
I
damage?
I doubt that it's gonna do normal damage. It seems like, since it's another thing that's really like, how do you call it? It's part of the V system, just like V reversal for one bar. I very much doubt that it would be
Dude,
real
KOing
damage.
someone would be so
And not
cheap.
just and not just that though. The other thing about that too is you have to understand out of V shift you can just do whatever you want, right? Who's to say you won't be able to get like a punish? You just get a whatever punish you want based on whatever move you want to do after
Yeah.
V shift.
Yeah.
So there's little reason to make the V shift break actually do real damage because you
Mhm.
could do real damage if you do the correct punish.
Mhm.
Sometimes
Really, because
sometimes you won't get the correct punish because obviously you're too far for anything to reach, but that's where the V shift break comes in. But
mhm.
that wouldn't justify having it do real damage if you're doing real damage out of V shift regardless. If you
Mhm.
weren't
Well, I was thinking it's more like because the V shift break being a universal invulnerable attack after all, right? Because you can only do it after the
that too.
um, like after you trigger the V shift successfully. If everyone got an actual damaging, like real damage, invulnerable V break might be. I don't know. It seems strange to me that it would do it that way. But even then, we still don't know, right? Like, 'cause then they didn't really talk about it.
Yeah.
For all we know, they could just do it anyway.
But I just
Yeah.
think that like when they created the V shift, they didn't have the V shift break in mind. Like I think they started off with V shift and then they realized, hey, some of these characters are not gonna be able to punish properly, so they need to add something else on top of that. You know? What do you guys think
Well,
about the input? Like the current rumored input, which is heavy punch, medium kick at the same time. And then V shift break is precedent again.
I think it makes sense because even though I thought you could do something like, say, if V reversal is 4 and 3 punches, 4 and 3 kicks, right? So you can have something like back and 3 punches or whatever. People brought up the fact that there's characters like Ed and Falk that cannot do that.
Yeah,
So
Blanca,
like,
Zangief.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it makes sense because there's no overlap with anything, pretty much, with those two buttons. There's no overlap with V skill. There's no overlap with V trigger. So, and if you screw it up, like if you press medium kick and heavy punch and you don't have V shift, you get heavy punch to come out.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like a risk associated with it. I think it makes sense. I think it's a reasonable choice.
Mm-hmm. Like you want it to be accessible for every type of controller, right? So you definitely got to
Yeah.
look at control pad first and foremost, right? So that'd be circle and
Mhm.
R1. So I think that's pretty good. I'm sure Capcom will probably add a macro too, like a macro option,
Yeah.
just in
Yeah.
case, because
Potentially,
there's
yeah.
like 6 button face controllers too, you know.
Hmm.
I think with the inputs for it, it doesn't really use medium punch, right? It uses just heavy punch and medium.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of characters when they're pressuring you are going to be using like their medium normal primarily from what I see, usually lights and medium. And it makes me think about potential option selects, right? On offense and on defense. Mostly what I'm speaking of is for offense primarily. Like you could hide the input for V shift in your block string, right? And the opponent's gonna want to do V shift against your block strings depending on what they are. But it really makes me think about that as an offensive tool because you could just hide it in every one of your block strings. So it's just like it's something to consider. I think I'm sure that Capcom is thinking about how it's gonna be used as an option select, like in what situations.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because we know
So
about that buffer thing. That's a big deal. Like we know
yeah,
if you
Yeah.
buffer something, it makes an invisible hitbox to make sure that your move still cancels out. Like they definitely thought of option selects. I don't know if they're successful at stopping it because people are gonna try probably delayed cancels to see if they can delay it really hard to make sure it doesn't come out, or we'll just be down to characters really benefiting from one hit confirms. I'm fine with that, but there's so many things about this V shift. Like one thing is like the V trigger meta is gonna be really weird. Like first off, the thing with these kind of mechanics, like when this patch rolls out, man, on Monday, everyone's gonna spam V shift. You know what I mean? Every
Oh yeah,
round, because people are
absolutely.
gonna try to mess around with it, right? They're like V shift, V shift. They're gonna use it like crazy. No one's gonna be using V trigger for a while. It's gonna be really strange, like not having a V trigger meta, you know. And a lot of people are going to use V shift improperly because we don't know what exactly gets punished. So there's going to be a lot of people doing block strings, but they're not canceling the specials, and then people are just going to V shift, and it's going to look all awkward, you know, at the beginning at least, when the meta just starts to grow. Like I said, it's going to feel like a new game again, so it's going to be really
yeah.
interesting.
I think the main thing people are gonna try to look for is like right off the bat, like how do you handle like V shift? How do you punish, right? I think in corner it's gonna be easier because there's literally nowhere for them to go. But I was having this conversation earlier in the week with Mir. I was asking, you think there's gonna be any real way to like push the V shift? The main thing is just like getting like spacing, right? Spacing and plus, right? I'm
Mhm.
sure there's gonna be some characters that will be able to potentially get a punish if they do like a delayed special move or something. But in general, I think like it's mostly about like taking positional advantage, taking uh good frame advantage and positional advantage. You're not punishing.
Hmm.
So the punishment is literally them spending the V meter.
Yeah, that's right. Like that's
So
the other thing that's worth remembering is the fact that even though a successful V shift will give you back half of the V gauge that you've spent, it's still not all of it. And even then, if you fail it, it's an entire V gauge that's gone. And some characters have a hard time building 4 V gauges, especially if they have
yeah,
a 3 bar V trigger and they have low health. So for a lot of characters, investing on a V gauge for the V shift is like I don't have my V trigger anymore, you know.
Yeah.
So it's I can imagine that some characters that already have good defensive options, like invulnerable stuff, DPs, things like that, they're gonna use V shift less, or at least once the meta settles in, right? When people figure out what V shift is useful for, because they're just not gonna be able to build V trigger, right? And that's why a lot of people were saying like characters that have not very impressive V triggers, but are pretty good in neutral, are probably going to benefit from this quite a bit. Assuming, because we haven't seen the patch notes, right? They just got these characters for all.
I think right now the most used like V skill or V shift will mostly be used probably on wake up. That's probably when most people are gonna use it.
yeah,
If they get
Yeah.
knocked down, they're gonna use it when they're like really scared. They don't know what the opponent might do. They'll use it there. I think in the lower ranks though, I think whenever people are blocking, they're just gonna mash it for now. Because I doubt like a lot of people in the lower ranks are not gonna punish it for a very long time. Right? It'll mostly just be kind of something you accept as an escape in
hmm
general. Like, how do you guys think you're gonna be able to punish this thing? Like, you guys think I'll have a small window of counter hit vulnerability on recovery? And
Mm, my guess is that the V shift itself, if you fail to initiate it, like as in it's just a backdash, then it will behave sort of like a backdash in the sense that the invulnerability is only at the beginning to see if it triggers or not, and if it doesn't, then it's vulnerable for the rest of the backdash, right?
makes
But if you
well,
trigger it,
they said in the video mirror, they said the invincibility lasts until the animation is over. Something along
this
those
is
lines.
for this is when the V shift triggers. I thought.
Yeah, they said the V shift. They said that the invincibility lasts for the animation. Like they basically
Yeah,
said in
the
a way
way
that the
yeah.
entire
But does it
backdash is
happen?
invincible.
yeah
But
the
does
way
it
the way I
happen
interpret it is.
trigger?
Oh,
Does it
go ahead.
happen
I'm
on
sorry.
does that property only happen for when it is triggered with the slow-mo state, or is it in general?
For
Yeah,
the
that's
way they worded it, made it sound like when the backdash is complete and the blue aura is gone, that is when you're vulnerable.
okay.
That
Yeah,
entire
Because
duration is invincible.
because
based
that
based on these two situations, you have two different answers, right?
Yeah,
Because assuming that it is the way you're describing it,
yeah.
then what that means is that I would expect them to have some vulnerability at the end. Otherwise, I feel like already on paper it would be too strong.
Right.
The way I interpreted it was that it's only fully invulnerable if it triggers the slowdown, like Sonic was saying, but otherwise it behaves sort of like a Street Fighter 4 backdash, where it's invulnerable at the beginning and then it's not after.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wait for it and bait it out, you could punish it with a delayed normal that reaches
Yep.
far. That's the way I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then hopefully
Like
it'll be counter hit and you crush counter, right?
Yeah.
If it is fully invincible all the way through, then the only thing I can think of is you hit them with a long range normal right at the tail end, or you dash in on them for a hard read. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think a jump would be fast enough.
Yeah, you
No,
could
that
dash in
wouldn't
on
be.
them. You can dash in on them for the hard read, sure. But it depends on distance, how far you are. Depends on what was V shifted in the first
You know what
place.
kind of backdash they have. That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
every
exactly.
character's got a different backdash. So like, are
Well,
they gonna
no.
normalize it
Well,
so
well,
every backdash the
the
same
thing-
speed?
Well, no, the thing about it is that again with the backdash, with the V shift backdash, we saw multiple characters do the V shift, and they all look like they have the same exact backdash, like the same distance and speed. It seems to.
Did somebody compare that though to make sure, or are the people just guessing?
No, I'm telling you because we saw it in the video. We saw
Yeah.
it in the actual trailer that all of the V shifts they had Ryu and Rashid do it side by side where they just whiffed it, and it was the same exact speed, same exact distance.
Mm.
So I'm telling you, they're gonna be the same.
I mean, that would
distance.
be ideal. Otherwise, it'd be weird.
Because
It would be.
yeah, the way I was thinking is that some characters have, I mean, obviously faster backdashes than others. Like like all the show, well, not all the shows. Ryu, Akuma, Sakura, I think they all have 21 frame backdashes. Well, normally a backdash is 24, 25.
Mhm.
I think 21 is the fastest, I believe, because Colleen's is also 21. And then there's a couple that are slightly slower. A Bison is 22 because it's the same as his forward dash. But basically, yeah, like if it is what you're saying, that they're normalized in both distance and speed, that would make it much easier in case they're punishable. Because you wouldn't have to lab every character separately.
Yeah,
For a
that'd be a
mechanic
pain in
that
the
is
ass.
coming this late, it might be convenient because like it would be a massive undertaking otherwise. There's
Yeah.
40 characters.
Right. Yeah. Seriously, I'm sure they thought about stuff like this. Hopefully. Well, what about okay? When you look at the Dan footage,
Yeah.
when Dan is someone on my YouTube comments pointed out to me that Dan's doing a meaty crush and heavy punch into the fireball. I thought he was just doing fireball. You can barely see it, like it's a fast cancel. So I think that pretty much solves the mystery on the startup. The startup's got to be one frame then. If he's doing a meaty crush and heavy punch, the startup's got to be one frame on V shift. I didn't see anyone
Assuming it
else
wasn't
point this out.
mistimed, but
What?
No, I don't
no,
think
I
it
was
was.
saying assuming it wasn't mistimed, but I don't think so, right?
No, if
I
you
don't
look at the footage, it's a meaty crouch and heavy punch. It looks like it's one frame startup. This V shift.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really crazy.
Most heavy normals are also active for like about 3 or 4 frames. So like they're usually the most active normal.
I don't know like how kind of telegraphed those like matches were, because they kind of seemed a little like scripted.
No, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
But I'm sure that crouch and heavy punch was a well timed meaty. And I mean, even if it was like one frame, if it's about that time, they could always change it by the time this patch comes out.
Yeah,
I don't think the footage was that old. They said the Rose footage was like December, but they could always change their minds if they think, hey, maybe this is too crazy. People are gonna come up. But another thing too is when Dan does the reversal V shift into super, you notice that the super doesn't do that much damage. Like it seems as if there seems to be some kind of damage reduction after V shift. It could be the guts, but if you really look at it, the damage does seem quite low for a super. So I don't know if it's because of Dan or what.
Massive damage though, because we don't know the normal damage distribution of his super as well.
Right, that's why I'm saying like it could be a Dan thing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
even if there is damage reduction on the V shift, that's still very strong. Just being able to do your custom combo would be pretty nuts already in general, but it'd be interesting if Capcom anticipated this. I think just specifically canceling the super is very powerful. Hitting someone with raw super hurts. It's a good chunk of damage. So doing a raw super, and there's some fast supers in this game, man. Like Cammy's super is like what, 4 frames?
Cammy's is 3.
3.
Yeah, 1+2. 1+2.
So you're punishing anything, right? 1+2. So you're punishing anything. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of fast supers.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think Gil's super is really fast too.
I think it's 7. Say,
And then there's
Ryu's
there's characters
super
like
is
Nash.
OP.
Like Nash has got a full screen super.
Yup.
Even if you V shifted a fireball that was quite far from you, having that slowdown and giving that time to
Oh,
buffer, even if it was an
V-shifting,
EX fireball, might have enough speed.
V-shifting, jumping, anti-airing with super.
I don't think it's gonna be fast enough. But with Cammy, maybe. I don't think it'll be fast
Cammy's
enough.
better. Cammy's better.
I think by the time you
Well-
V shifted, they're gonna land and recover. I'm pretty damn sure. That'd be stupid if you can V shift
But-
jump ins.
But that's what I'm.
But what
that's
about
I'm
dive kicks?
Well, that's another important thing to say, by the way, about V-shifting jump-ins and stuff. Is that we don't know if the V-break is safe on block or not. That's the other thing, right?
I think it's gonna be
The-
-2 if I were to guess.
Because, well, I mean, imagine it this way, right? Like, since you trigger the V-shift with the jump-in, and then, they do their backdash, and then they do the V-break, and you're ready there to block it,
hmm
there would be no counterplay if it is safe on block. So you can either throw it like V reversals, or it's unsafe, which makes it so that you cannot use it on everything, like V shifting and V breaking a light, for example.
Also, remember if the V-shift break is safe, they want to spend 2 meters, just do another V-shift. Just
Yeah,
do
you can
another
V
one.
you can
Yeah,
V shift the
technically
V
you
shift
do that,
break,
yeah.
and it's shown that it does work. You
Yep.
can neutral jump it probably too.
hmm
So
That's another way.
it needs to be bait for the V-shift break. I think like
Right.
we see Ryu doing the stand medium punch, and then he reacts to the V-shift break with his own V-shift. So
Yeah.
I would imagine there'd be react.
I mean, I think I'm totally okay with this. Like, even if it's that good, like I'm okay because it's gonna make more interaction, right? And it's gonna,
It-
it's a good change of pace from just seeing V trigger comeback every damn round.
I mean, it reminds me like I'm playing the Strive beta right now, the
Yeah.
recording, and the Strive, like the gameplay in Strive in terms of like it using Roman cancel, their version of Roman cancel feels very similar to V shift for like the blue Roman cancel, because the thing is you can also move the Roman cancel back, you could drift it back, right, and basically reset the situation. They also have a yellow one that breaks the opponent while you're in blocks, but the main one is the blue one because it happens in neutral, and you slow them down, and you basically can drift yourself away from the opponent and react to with whatever you want. So it's like it's very similar, like V shift to GG Strive Blue RC. Like it's literally.
But the
like,
thing is like the V shift slows down both characters, so no one's gaining an advantage. I think the slowdown is literally just there to confirm it, so you're aware that
Yeah.
your V shift was successful,
true.
and you have the option of
That's
V
what
breaking.
option selects too.
Yeah, like if there was no slowdown, then it'd be really hard to be like, did I dodge it successfully? I don't know if I should V break here, right? V shift break. So if the slowdown gives you that confirm time, no one's really gaining an upper hand. It's literally just a backdash dodge. So someone compared it to like Witch Time from Bayonetta. That's kind of a good comparison.
It is a good comparison.
But I think I don't play Bayonetta, but I know in Bayonetta when she does the Witch Time, it doesn't slow down herself. It just
No, it doesn't.
everything around her.
Yes.
So that was a kind of cool comparison to it. But yeah, it's kind of Woshige. He likes to try to take a lot of Guilty Gear flair and put it into Street Fighter. So I'm sure like some of it was borrowed off YRC and all that. But yeah, like honestly, I'm really happy about the new system. Like I would never have guessed this. Would never have guessed them doing this. And there could have been a lot of bad things they could have added. So all I wanted was something that was going to change the meta and use the V gauge. That's all I wanted, man. And this is more than enough.
Hey, I'm happy. This means Cammy's not gonna do stand medium punch, walk forward, stand medium punch. Kuma's not gonna do crouching strong into crouching strong.
They're still gonna do it. They're just never gonna throw that fireball now. That's gonna be crouching strong for days.
Hey, that's fine. You got a hit confirm. And
True.
if you mindlessly press it, I'm a V shift. Now you're gonna get punished.
Okay, but what do you guys feel about every character having a reversal now, though? Every character has a reversal.
Nash needs it.
Bro, Nash has a reversal. Yo, Sonic.
All right, let's see.
Sonic. Nash has a reversal. That's That's messed up,
Right
bro.
now, Vega has the fourth option that puts him in the corner. So Vega
Bro.
has a V reversal that puts him in the corner a little bit, a V reversal
Bro.
that puts him in the corner a lot. He has V skill 2, and then he has this.
Bro. That's messed up. Everyone has a reversal. That's so weird. And DPs are still not invincible.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh yeah, you don't
What?
like invulnerable DPs? Well, I'm just gonna give everyone a reversal now." How you like
It's
that?
so weird just thinking about that. Like, what? What does that even mean?
It's
You know?
like it's a lot like those characters that have like wake up teleports and such that only are vulnerable to a single option, usually throws.
Yeah.
But these are also invulnerable to throws. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
it's
weird.
quite it's interesting for sure. Did Akuma need another teleport? I guess not.
I guess not. I mean, that's another thing too. With these characters with parries and counters and stuff, they're gonna build. That's another way they can punish the V break.
Yeah,
Because if
absolutely.
a character like Ryu or Gil or even Alex
Colleen.
baits the V break and they parry that, they're gonna get blown up because they're right
Yeah.
in their face. That's huge.
She gets
Mhm.
all the time in the world in that slowdown to be like, oh, you did a low here? I'm gonna parry that. Like
That's very strong, dude. Very, very strong.
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah, it has to be said that the slowdown. We were talking about option selects before, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how you should cancel, like delay, cancel everything.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think that the slowdown is there to prevent that, but also it makes it possible for characters that have, um, like certain moves to be cancelable on reactions. So like, for example, let's say Geef does crouching medium punch on your wake up, for example,
Yeah.
and you V shift, right?
Yeah.
And he thinks that you're gonna V break. What if he cancels it into EX bear grab and then he armors through you and grabs you, right?
Dude, you didn't even
Yeah,
need to do that. You just V skill armor it and then
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
EXSPD.
like, but that wouldn't be a cancel. That's what I meant. Right?
Right.
Like the extra time gives you the time to confirm into a cancel.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be that some characters, instead of canceling into the fireball, if they expect the V shift, maybe they could cancel into some other move that is, like really good at dealing with the V break itself, right? And maybe
Yeah.
even able to punish the V shift
And
in
Mm-hmm.
before
case
time.
it has vulnerability frames at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird, dude. And it's funny too because everyone's saying their character will not benefit. Like everyone's like, "Oh, it's gonna hurt zoning. Oh, it's gonna hurt grapplers.
Yeah. Like
Oh,
with
it's only gonna
zoners,
help the top tiers."
yeah, with Daigo, he was saying it was gonna hurt zoners because the V shift would end up basically nullifying every projectile. But I don't really think it's gonna do it to that extent because
Right.
again, it's not like parry, and no one's gonna just blindly just use V every.
Well, you're not like I said. You're not gonna be throwing this thing out every 3 seconds.
And as for
Yeah.
grapplers, right? When you try to grab a V shift, it doesn't trigger the slowdown.
No.
Now, yeah, granted, grapplers, they have a command grab. They basically nerfed all command grabs to be like 60 frames plus with it. They
Mm-hmm.
can't
Yep.
get punished. But like the regular like V shift in and of itself does not trigger the slow mo whenever you go for a throw against.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's just another way to escape a command grabs
Well, that's
regardless.
what I'm saying. It benefits both sides, man. Because even
Yeah.
if Daigo was using Abigail as an example of being unstoppable, right? So
Mhm.
like if Abigail does use V shift against Guile and knock him down, well now Guile has the extra wake up option of V shift against Abigail, right? It
Exactly.
benefits both. And on top
Mhm.
of that, if Abigail is using like V shift like twice or 3 times in a
Nope.
match to punish fireballs, he's not gonna have V trigger. You
Mhm.
know, that hurts him. That's one of
Yeah.
Abigail's main win conditions is V trigger. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
like,
Well, another thing that's worth mentioning, I think, is the fact that the V shift still takes quite a bit of time because, like you were saying, it's a backdash, and especially if it's like they universally made it so that it's a certain like length time.
yeah,
It's very possible that they did it on purpose so that the V shift plus V break wouldn't be able to punish fireballs on reaction unless they're maybe really bad fireballs, right? So like let's look at a Sonic Boom. Sonic Boom for Gao Sonic Boom is like 10 frames startup and then 30 recovery, right? For a
yeah,
total of 40. you need to wait for the 10 frames of startup to V-shift in the first place, because you
Yep.
cannot V-shift anything, like in thin air, that is.
What happened?
Sorry. And then you have to complete your V-shift and do the V-break. And I mean, I would assume that, like if you counted the frames, it's very difficult that the V-break is going to be like less than 5 frames. I find it very difficult to believe, right? So I don't think you'll be able to punish fireballs on reaction. And even then, that wouldn't be a reaction. It would be after 10 frames of the startup,
Yep.
right?
They
So
showed
there was a
Ryu
prediction.
punishing Rashid's fireball. That's a very particular case. In the footage, they
Yeah.
showed Ryu just raw V-shifting and breaking and hitting Rashid's fireball. And he was in the corner.
But those are fireballs with like a lot of recovery, right? Like zoners usually don't have
It's a
fireballs that
very
have a lot of
particular
recovery.
case. So
Yeah.
there's that, and then you can kind of juke the opponent too with an EX fireball as well. That will definitely recover in time. Like I said, Ryu, like if Ryu did an EX fireball, he would definitely have enough time to parry that shit.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like V shift, I don't think it's as crazy as everyone thinks it is, but we could be wrong, right? On the speed. I think V shift so far is for very annoying telegraph things. And another thing too is like, just because V shift is not punishing something doesn't mean it's bad. It's helping you
No,
escape.
absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Using V shift to punish fireballs, like raw, that sounds like an offensive mechanic. Not like a defensive mechanic, right? They want you to use it
Yeah.
defensively. So it's more things like, if there's like a stupid Honda just doing butt slam over and over again,
Or
or
hands
you
into
have
hands.
Urian in the corner, and you know what he's gonna do. He's gonna do EX knee drop. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of whack stuff. So like it's used for that.
And the thing is too, like they do want you to use it defensively. I've heard people talk about like, oh well, this means V reversal is done now, it's dead. I'm like, oh, V reversal
Oh
isn't dead,
yeah,
right? Like that's the other thing. Like V reversal is used now for very specific situations. It's always been like that. If you
yeah,
block like a heavy normal with a lot of recovery or certain EX moves, that will allow you to knock them down or escape the corner and not get punished, right?
Yeah.
Most players don't use V reversal against like light or medium normals unless the medium normal has a recovery, right? It's
yeah,
very specific
yeah.
situation. Whereas V shift will cover far more situations that's in regard to telegraph strings and
Mhm.
decision, right? So it's literally like the V reversal is a guaranteed like way to get out of the corner. V
Yeah.
shift, we don't even know if you could like in corner you could get punished. I'm assuming you can get punished for doing V shift and bait it.
Mhm.
So it's the same way with V reversal where that can get baited too. The difference is that most people are going to only use V reversal when it's necessary, like with V reversal. V shift can be used at any time, anywhere. So you have to think about the player in that. So
V reversal just wasn't strong enough on its own, especially
no,
with
it
the meta,
wasn't.
right?
Yeah, no,
Like
It
exactly.
wasn't.
V reversal wasn't gonna save you against certain V triggers. It wasn't gonna save you against throw loops, right?
Mm-mm.
And it's not gonna save you, against shimmies and stuff. So it's like it was just like there's just the way the game evolved to V reversal just wasn't strong enough. They actually made
Yeah.
some tweaks to V reversal too, several patches,
Yep.
but it just wasn't enough to stand on its own two legs, right? Now with the combination of V-Shift, V-Reversal,
It
strong
completes it.
for its
Completes
specific
it.
use, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially when, as we were saying before, you cannot use the V reversal in the same situations where you can use V shift, because
Yep.
V reversal you can use only in block stun, and
Yeah.
V shift you can only use out of block stun. So
Yep.
obviously they have different purposes, right?
Yeah, if someone's doing a block string in the super and you're gonna get chipped out, I mean, you need V-Reversal. V-Shift ain't gonna
Yeah.
help you
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
You're stuck in block
absolutely.
stun, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it is. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, what do you guys think about, like, the V-Trigger meta? Like, do you think we're just not gonna see V-Trigger every round now? Like, there's gonna be some rounds where no one uses V-Trigger.
I
I
think it's difficult to say because it's based a lot on the balance changes. Because it's like you get characters right now that barely use their V triggers because they're already not very good, right? And they don't really need them. Like
Yeah,
a perfect example of this is Karine, right? Karine's V trigger kind of whatever,
yeah,
and she does perfectly fine without it, right? So
Mhm.
she's fine spending meter on or V gauge on offensive V reversal or defensive V reversals, and that's just fine for her, right?
yeah.
So like if you assume that there was no balance patch, then you'd say, okay, well now Karine has V shift available. she's gonna use it a lot because she doesn't care about her V triggers, right?
Mhm.
But they could easily change with the balance patch that Karin's V triggers are now much stronger, and it's not so clear cut to just say. Well, of course they'd have to nerf other things, but you know what I mean, right? Like if they make her V triggers a much more appealing choice, then Karin players will think twice about, okay, maybe I want to use my V trigger or I want to use my V shift, right?
There's just
Same
there's
for like,
some V triggers that are really telegraphed though, man. Like what about Rashid's V trigger 1? Like that should be a guaranteed V shift.
mhm.
Rashid's gonna have to
Well, I'm going to
attempt it.
assume that there's gonna be like ways around it. Like if Rashid expects you to V shift, he can like jump in at you
Gonna
or
have to jump
like
straight
set up
up.
something, right? Yeah,
But
like a
like,
dive kick,
you know what I
whatever.
mean? It's still a nerf to Rashid's V trigger. Like if I
Yes,
V shift and I
absolutely.
don't do V shift break, then he jumps and there's nothing. He's just wasting time, right?
Hmm.
And then I block it. Same with Urian's Aegis. This really hurts Aegis. Like if
Yeah,
you you know what I mean? He might have to use 2 reflectors just to guess right to trap you.
it's a lot of one activation, like physical hitting, like or physical activating V triggers. I think that could hurt a little bit
It
from
does,
shift.
man. It definitely does.
So like the install V triggers might be a little better case if you think about it.
Hmm.
Um, because I mean, and then you look at all the meta. Look at the meta. Look at all the characters.
Yeah.
Rashid V trigger 2 install, Akuma install, G install, Seth install, both
Yeah.
or one of them. Like a lot of the top characters
Dan
use
install. Sorry.
a lot of a lot of the top characters and even some mid tier characters too. All use install based time based V triggers,
Hmm.
not physical hitting V triggers.
Yeah, because
So
that's
in a
most of the V triggers in the first place, right?
Yeah, exactly. But the physical hitting ones, Rashid's Rashid and Ed, for instance, with their projectiles, yeah, that V shift can affect them in some ways. You got to use them properly, and even then, like for stuff like Rashid or Ed, where you want the mix up, it's like how they can V shift it, and like what now? Like what are you gonna do now?
Well, it has to be said that again, we don't know the interaction with these V triggers just because we don't have
Right,
hands-on
right.
with the game. So, like for example, it could be very possible that you do a V shift on the edges and you don't V break, and you're still forced to block the edges because that's the distance you travel, and you travel into the edges,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or it could be that for Rashid's V trigger 1, right? You backdash the V trigger 1, and then you still have to block it, or like
That would still be
you have
great.
to
That
you
means the
have
V
to
trigger would go
practice.
away.
Sorry.
Yeah. Then you V reversal.
Wow, 2 bars, yeah.
Just burn the whole bar.
Alternatively, if you're in corner and they do it right, and you do V shift and then V shift break, the V shift break, if it's invincible, it'll go through the V trigger, right? It'll go through the tornado, for instance, if you're already cornered.
Mhm.
So that's something to consider. But obviously, if you just do the V shift break and they know you're gonna do it, then they anticipate that, hopefully
Yeah,
punish it or take their advantage.
Right.
So
getting you to jump on and die, things like
yeah,
that.
Mhm. I just think there's gonna be a lot of guessies going on with V Shift.
Oh yeah,
There's gonna be a
for
lot of
sure.
guessies. That's the thing. There's gonna be a lot of wasted meter for sure.
Hmm.
But I do think that from a spectator's point of view, the game will be very entertaining to watch when we do see successful V shifts and interactions between the two. I'm sure I'll be mad hype if we see someone V shift in a V shift break. I think it'll be hilarious. So that's sick too.
let's go, Tokido.
Are we ready for Evil Moment 69 or something like something new?
It'll
With a
just
V?
be like Tokyo baiting something and then using Akuma as like parry to parry the V shift break, right?
Mhm.
But I don't know the speed of it. I was really worried about those -2s in the V shift, but now that we know like that it's kind of slow, I'm not too worried as much as I was before. Because I saw that Laura versus Vega thing where she V shifted at the elbow. I was like, come on, man, you
He was
know.
just learning how to deal
To
with
be
it, and
fair,
all of a
Vega.
But they
sudden,
made Vega do heavy punch, so I'm not too
Yeah, I was
worried.
gonna say Vega was already a bum for pressing standing heavy punch
He was already
before
a bum, yeah.
that.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, come on, man. Yeah, I don't know. So there's still a lot of questions we need to answer. There's like
Yeah.
reduced damage afterwards. Is it
Hmm.
punishable? Is it really fully invincible? Are the
Yeah.
speeds normalized? Is the distance normalized? Right?
Hmm.
And does it does it do great
Will
damage?
it
Does it
kill
do
the
real
fireball
damage?
game? Question mark.
Just so much, man. And like Yeah, I mean, we still don't know if it works against supers. It should, by its description.
I would imagine
It should,
it would be.
and it
So
should
easy.
work against V triggers as well. That's the
Yeah.
description. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe they were worried about that. I don't know. A system like this, there's a lot that can change.
Mm-hmm.
And
general.
remember, we still have the balance patches, right? With all the different characters. They specifically said they adjusted every character game
Yeah.
around the tool. So
Well,
we don't
speaking of the
even.
balance patch, we should talk about that. Balance
Yeah.
patch. With what they've seen. So, as hype as V Shift is, right? And as hype as Dan will be and Rose will be, I think that with this new direction, I feel like this balance patch is gonna be a little different. I feel like they're really doing some weird stuff. Like the first preview was that Akuma side switch change, right? So we see the side
Mhm.
switch change. I'm like, that's a strange nerf. You don't really see a nerf like that. Usually a nerf or something like that would be like an air reset. When they nerf Caddy's like air reset thing, they try changing that. But to go after a specific B&B side switch, like that's kind of thinking outside the box. And then we're seeing goofy stuff like Ryu jumping heavy kick counter hit juggle into V trigger 2 raw activation hit. Like what is going
When I
on?
was
And
watching the footage and that happened, I was like, I was alone in my house and literally wasn't talking to anyone. And when the Ryu footage came up and it did jumping heavy kick counter hit to the DPV trigger, I was like, what? That's not what
I know.
I said, what?
Dude, that is like Capcom giving up and just throwing him like the kitchen sink. You know what I mean? They're like, how do you think of something like that? Like, what does Ryu need? I mean, I think he needs a counter hit, air juggle, heavy kick. Like, what? You
I
know?
mean, there are a lot of like weird things, right? Because we don't know.
Dude. Okay, I don't even know why you even compared that to Cross Tekken Sonic. Everyone has an air juggle in Cross Tekken. That doesn't even make any sense.
But that's the thing, right? Because based on what we've seen, we actually don't know if it's on counter hit, if it's because of V Trigger 2. Does everyone get it? Like, what are we expecting here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if everyone gets it, I think it'd be kind of stupid. if it's only Ryu, I think that's.
But
fine.
there's weird stuff we haven't seen. That is weird. Jumping heavy kick, air juggle state is weird. Okay, but then we have other stuff like Ed doing a guard break that's just enough time so he can't combo after. Like that's weird.
But enough to put you in a mix up.
There's nothing else like that in the game. That's weird. That is specifically so they can't be reversal.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Assuming
strange.
that they're gonna be reversal the first hit, that'd be hilarious.
Oh yeah, Sonic brought that up. So like, I'm just like, these are just really strange changes that you're not gonna do unless you have a different set of eyes on it, or you're really trying to like, or this new direction.
Spice it up.
And we saw Jerry go Jerry's V Trigger 2, man. We saw they changed that. I mean,
I think the biggest thing about Jiri though is not the V Trigger 2 change. I think it's the heavy Fuha kick change. Like
the subtle height change.
That like that going into super, and it looked like it launched them higher in the air.
Yeah.
So it might allow for some conversions that she used to not get, especially with V Trigger.
Mm-hmm.
So
but them like looking at these V triggers that are not used, like for Jerry's V Trigger 2 is like the worst V trigger in the game. Okay. Like by them buffing it good enough, they're literally adding a V trigger to the game. That's a big deal. It means that thing really needs to be focused on.
Mm-hmm.
And same with Ed, like that Ed V Trigger 2 is cool, but it had such a massive weakness. Just doing V reversal counters the damn thing. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. That is a massive weakness. So like, they have to look at this and really focus on these specific situations because like that's why I said this is the hypest patch, because V Shift looks like it's automatically going to change everything. Whereas V Trigger 2 and V Trigger 2 is sick for certain characters, but some characters can't use their V Trigger 2 because they just suck.
Yeah, absolutely. No, like I'm excited for the patch almost more than I am for the V Shift. Even though, of course, the V Shift is going to change the game completely, and I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Like the thing that's important about the patch is that it's basically, if you will, their last chance. It's not really last chance because they said they're going to have another patch down the line, but
it's the last chance,
quote unquote, last chance
it's the last.
to make the game really different in a way that is meaningful. Like, as in, like I feel like the game is in a good spot balance wise, but there are some dumb things in the game that need changed, and I think that's the opportunity that they have to change.
Well, I expect them to change this V trigger plus on block nonsense. That
Dude,
better be
Everybody,
priority number one. Dude, I like if I see
everybody
G's
complains
notes
about
and I see that shit's still +6 or whatever it is,
plus 4.
it's so stupid. Like
it.
there's
You
like
know, I was
they
in
nerf Balrog's crouching immune kick target combo, and I'm like, okay. And then like they keep all this other plus nonsense.
I was in Filipino champ stream, right? And I saw him lose to a G, and he's like, "Yo, the one thing I really don't like that a lot of players just want out the game is just trigger activations in the neutral.
Yeah, dude, it's stupid.
Raw V trigger activate into plus frames.
It's
Like they
stupid.
don't want they don't want that. And
It's
I mean,
stupid.
it's funny. I was talking to Mir about this. I remember a while back, about a couple weeks back, we was talking about this.
Mhm.
I was
You
like,
wanna
"Yo,
know
this
where the
shit
definition of a 50-50?
is
It was a great
50-50."
discussion.
It's strange because we're going in a circle. Because like I said, when we first played the beta version of Street Fighter V, there was no like V trigger cancel activation. It didn't work like that. The V trigger activation when they like go into their stance was so slow. You could literally couldn't do anything. You could probably sweep into it, but you couldn't get any combos. And then people were complaining about that. But like, well, the reason we didn't do that is because we didn't want it to be like FADC, where everything's safe. And
And
now
look at
we've
it
gone
now.
full circle. We've gone full circle. Yeah, we got V shift now, but I shouldn't have to use my damn V shift. Like I blocked your whack ass full screen 88 mile per hour move. Why the hell should I have to guess again?
Bro, you just say that because you hate footsie. But, but no, like I absolutely agree with this.
A little
It's the fact
stupid.
that there are situations that are just too easy to um how can I put it? Like it's too easy to convert into like meaningful pressure, right?
It's too
It's
high
like
risk, low reward.
yeah,
That's
no,
why.
exactly. It's like, oh, G is about to do EX slow smash, or just neutral jump forehead, and then you get EX high smash instead and die. So it's like,
Oh
okay,
my god.
great.
That's,
It's
And
it's
then,
definitely it's definitely like low risk, high reward in
yeah,
that
yeah,
man.
situation.
exactly.
It's so bad. Like, I gotta guess now because you just did EX low rush punch. Now I'm guessing between whether or not I'm gonna get command grabbed or put into another combo, which leads into the same damage and situation.
Hmm.
Like
Just you watch. The dev notes are gonna be like, we felt that G was nerfed quite hard by this new V shift, so we made the low EX smash plus 12 on V trigger
Ooh.
activity.
Ooh.
So that's the same as the high one.
Ooh. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I I hope the notes. I mean, best case scenario is like it's a long, wall scroll list, and every note is, meaningful. Because I feel like the very first patch we got was like a wall scroll of notes. There were so many notes, but most of the notes were like nerfs of things
yeah,
for every character.
Yeah,
Like they
yeah,
G
nerfed
was
the
like
first
one
patch
page
was the most
long.
nerf season. Everything
Mhm.
was nerfed. Every character got shot some way. Some characters got
Yeah.
shot more, right? But characters are getting shot. But then I feel like with this latest patch, it was like the smallest notes, but every change was fairly impactful. So I feel like we need to be both, right? Because
Mhm.
there were impactful changes, but it's like it wasn't a lot of changes, this time around. I don't want the notes to be small.
What I think about these changes, though, honestly, though, I don't think they're gonna hit too much. That's what I think. I'm not saying that that's gonna happen. I don't think they're gonna hit because V shift alone is it's a very like polarizing mechanic. It's something that will change the game, change up a lot of pressure that we already know about. Um, a lot of the changes that we saw in the balance patch video so far, or from what we've seen, we obviously didn't see everything, but it just seems like it's just gonna, of course, work with what we already have. A lot of people, again, with Jury, were screaming she should start with stocks at round start. Give her stocks with V Trigger too, right? A lot of compromises, uh, in terms of making characters still be able to operate in way, or kind of like nudge a little bit into what people are asking for, for certain characters. And I didn't see too many like changes in terms of how they would go about, sure, or go about.
There's
with
just some
cog
obvious
like
characters
that.
that need to be looked at that, they've been looking at for a while, and like
I want
there's
them to
only
do
so many times they can buff Ryu before they get really sick of it. And they're like, okay, let's just go nuts. There's only so many times, man. So many patches.
But it's like
No one
every
uses
heavy
this
kick
character.
juggled you, so that's what you have.
They're like, Ryu's pick rate is number 1, so we did a good job. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, there's just certain characters that they just need to look at. They need to get blasted.
They need to really look at Ryu. Like, I shouldn't be looking. I mean, I love Dan. I love how he looks. I love how they've done him, justice. But why does he look like he's better than?
Why is he what?
Why does he look like he's better than Ryu? Like,
Probably
why?
because he
He's
is.
fast. He's fast. You see him zoom around.
Yes, dance cancels, man.
Yeah, you
Why?
say that until Ryu hits you the jumping heavy kick, and then you're like,
And then
where did my life go?
go?
And then he parries your V-shift break, and you're just like, oh my god.
Just like Daigo. Let's
I
go.
don't know, man. We'll have to see. This balance patch, man. I really hope it's good. I hope it's just not just V-shift. But like I said, my expectations are high now with the new direction.
Yeah.
This is a chance for them to really show that, hey, we got some new direction and we're still good without Ono. This is like their opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they do that, man. I just feel like nothing is like lazy. Like nothing looks like an afterthought. Like the design on Dan and Rose alone is really good compared to most new characters, right? Like look at Falk. Oh my god. And right, this V-shift mechanic, same thing. Does not look like they just, discussed it. Like, hey, let's just add this in. This is good enough. Yeah. Ship it out. And now the balance patch, like I said, it's weird. This balance patch looks weird with that Akuma change, the Ed, Zangief V-trigger canceling from Lariat. Like, what? There's some weird stuff in here, guys.
Yeah, that is pretty sick.
These are not like normal patch notes. Like, what the patch notes we're used to are like adjusted, jostling,
It's a jostling on the move.
Jostling on the move. Like it's stuff
forget.
like that, or this move now has a juggle property. So now Ken can do target combo after EX Air Tatsu. You're never gonna land in a match, but he can do
balance changes. I think you could look at Nash and everybody else. Nash increased startup frames or decreased startup frames from 4 frames to 3 frames. Meanwhile, Ryu hold juggle from jumping roundhouse on counter hit. Look at Geef activating from from Lariat into V trigger, and meanwhile Nash just going from 4 frames to 3 frames.
And some characters, like you said, Mika and Jerry got no notes. Now, don't get me wrong, Jerry is a whack ass character.
She literally gets no notes.
Sometimes I wish the character just be removed from the game, but I sympathize with the fact that she has no notes. Like, what the hell is that? You wait, dude. These patch notes don't come around every weekend. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? This is a year. We wait a year for these patches. As my brother would say, we're starved for content. We
are starved for content.
So you wait a year, and then you're looking at the patch notes, and there's nothing. They're like, she's fine. Wait another year, asshole. Like, what?
Like, that would be my parting thought, if you will. Like, it's the fact that regardless of how you slice it, this patch, even if it's not, like, meaningful changes, like, if they're happy with where a character is, there should still be changes. Because, like, it doesn't feel... It feels bad if you've been playing a character for, like, 4+ years. And then it's like, oh, finally, it's my opportunity to get something new. Like, it doesn't even have to be good. It's like something new to just practice with and try. And then it's like, we feel like this character is doing very well, so screw you. Like, no, I don't like that. Like,
guys, imagine if you woke up in the morning and you were a Nakali main. Just think about that. The pain you would feel.
Actually, with this patch, you're like, where did my V trigger go? Where's 2 bars?
And that's another example, dude. That is a crazy change. They completely changed Nakali's V trigger. That was a staple.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's like giving Akuma 1,000 health. It's like, what the hell is going on?
I mean, I was looking at Phenom's Twitter and was like, what?
He's like, something changed after 5 years. Like, bro, I don't know. That's why my expectations are high, but we're going to find out real soon, man. Like, just a couple days. So, if it doesn't, and then we can use the option to select, we still got V-shift, man. But I'll be kind of like, Nash got a V 3-framer. 5 years it took. But if it's hype, I mean, damn, I mean, like, hey, man, this is sick. You know, I can't wait for Rose, and then it just makes me honestly more hype for Street Fighter 6. You know,
Yeah.
if this is the stuff they can come up with on the fly, what are they doing with Street Fighter 6, man? So, I have to see. My brother said they took V Shift right out of 6 and put it into 5. They took it out. They're like, just give them this mechanic, man. They need it. They said because you glow blue.
His explanation was flimsy at best. It was like, oh, because it's blue. So like, what is that supposed to be?
Well, he's just saying there's nothing else in the game because he says everything in the game is like ink. So it's like this looked like it came right out of a different game, a different world. I guess that was Street Fighter 6.
It is in a way, like I'll give it to him in the sense that it is in a way a different world, as it's a different direction, as we've said, and we can only hope that it's going to be the same for 6, right?
Yeah,
that's what we've been saying this whole time.
Yeah. No, like I said, I hope they continue with this direction they're going. Like I said, this will be like the last kind of thing up in the air on what we're concerned with is the balance patch and just how good it's going to be. It already looks good. But we'll see, right? Like, we'll see if they actually will have a different meta from the ground up without even putting V-Shift into the equation. That's what we want. That's perfect case scenario. And then, like I said, then we only have to look forward to Rose, right? And then there'll be like, I think they'll, like, right now till Rose will be hype, but I think there'll be a small drought after Rose because then there'll be, like, because Dan is coming with a balance patch and the new mechanic, right? When Rose comes out, it's just a new stage in Rose, so the game was going to kind of, like, it'll be a stale for a little bit. But I think when Akira and Oro come out, I think they both come out at the same time. That will be insane. Those two characters.
Those two and a new balance.
And then by that time, they might even have, certain announcements by then to be hype about. So I think that's
fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think we got a good, steady pace now for the game's life. I think this year will be good. It won't be like, let's just have a blackout of news for 8 months and then release 3 characters that get leaked. Like, come on, bro. This is way better. And they already said they have another developer's blog planned for the spring update with Rose. So that means we're gonna get a preview probably on Akira and Oro by then, right?
Yeah.
So, excellent. Probably some new costumes and whatever else they add, right? We'll have to see.
That's right.
That Akira trailer, man. I'm telling you, there's gonna be
Yeah.
Rising. I mean, the game she's from, Rivals.
Yeah, dude. No, they said they wanted her to use a mechanic from the game. That'll be sick. I hope it's air combos. So cool.
Look, Ryu already does it, bro.
I know, but hers will be higher. It'll be even higher up in the air. It'll be higher up in the air. I hope she has Rekka's, man. Oh, that'd be so sick, dude. So, anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap this up?
I mean, just that, like, I'm happy about the new direction, as we've been saying, like, the entirety of this video.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that this patch is going to be meaningful. Regardless, it's going to be interesting just because of how the game is going to be changed because of V-Shift. If it is a train wreck, it's going to be a hilarious one. So I'm prepared.
I'm pretty much agreeing with Mir's sentiments here. I am actually like very excited for the game. Like on a technical side, like I want to see a lot of the shift, what players will come up with, and I want to see like what my options are with it. I'm pretty much theory fighting like every time like I think about thinking about every situation. It's gonna
be a lot of lab time
approaches. And the other thing too is of course, I'm excited. Nash went from 4 to 3. You can only spell gap with 3 letters. So
you're gonna be using V Trigger 2. Watch, you're finally gonna use.
I don't know, man. They gotta really adjust V Trigger 2.
V Trigger 1 really sucks? Question mark.
I think the biggest thing though, like I am hyped for it. I am hoping that somewhere down the line this year they address like the netcode. The netcode isn't like the worst.
You said the forbidden word, bro.
But I have to mention it. Like I think people are still talking about it. And then with Strive being a thing too, everyone's playing people from Japan and in East Coast and West Coast right now. That's some competition for them to think about. Granted, I know for Street Fighter 6, they'll probably think about it then. But with 5, we have it right now, and I would like for them to actually worry a little bit about the netcode a bit, like at least do something, because we saw all last year. I love Capcom Cup. I love seeing the fights.
I don't think they're gonna change anything, bro. I think this is it.
I know.
This is the last season. Wrap it up, and they're just focusing on Street Fighter 6, bro.
they need to do something about that netcode if they're trying to do online tournaments, man. I'm just saying.
Gimme.
Admittedly, like to play devil's advocate,
It's not gonna happen.
It's difficult to implement new netcode in an older game, but I mean, we can always hope, you know.
Yeah,
At
we
this
could
point,
hope.
maybe, like Ono's gone, and like for all we know, Ono was like, "No, the late-based netcode is the best."
It doesn't make sense for them to
But
fix it.
But it's not even that. Like, remember, like they ended up having to go back into the game to take out the reverse engineered netcode and
Yeah,
force
but they were forced to.
They were forced to.
I mean, yeah. So, like, why can't they do something to just better the netcode? They already have the stuff from Marvel Infinite, right? Like, they already perfected it. Why don't they work back on it? They found what the problem was.
I don't
Like,
know. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I'm
Yeah,
not a
I
network engineer. I don't know.
But that's
what
the
I
one
do know
hope
is it ain't happening. They
look,
ain't
that's
gonna
the
add
one
it,
hope
Sonic.
I would have. But on a happy note, I am happy that like the overall like changes that are coming out and V Shift are happening.
Yeah.
I'm happy that it's making some change for the game.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. All right, guys. It was cool hanging out with everyone again. You should do this again sometime. And I guess we'll do a follow-up when the game comes out and give our impressions when we know what's going down with all these new mechanics and changes. And yeah, man. All right, guys. Stay safe. Guys, let us know in the comments below what you think, your expectations. Are you guys going to get back into Street Fighter? And we'll go from there. All right, guys. Peace out.